Kuo Longji and Xu Ming returned home before Han Sen. They saw a couple of bowls laid out, filled with meat. Looks like San Mu saved it for us. After downing a mouthful, Xu Ming stopped still and said, "What the hell? What's wrong with that meat? Is it raw?" Q Lengji asked in confusion. "This is ordinary flesh. I just had a bite and lo and behold, my ordinary Geno points increased." Xu Ming was so shocked that he struggled to get his words out. They waited for Han Sen's return, and before long he came strolling through the yard atop Meowth. Golden Growler was by his side, carrying the severely wounded wind beast. "Where did you get the holy Shura? Is that a wind beast?" Before Chu Ming could finish his sentence, he saw the ravaged body of the wolf and was delivered another shock. "San Mu, where did you get this from? And where in the sanctuaries did you kill that coin toad?" "Didn't I tell you? I killed that toad along the banks of the river. And as for this wind beast, I received it from Yu Yan after trading it for a copper fruit I managed to obtain." Han Sen disembarked Meowth and brought the wind beast further into the yard. The wind wolf was dying, and it could hardly whimper. "You are incredibly fortunate, but dumb too. Why would you trade 2 copper fruits for a seed and a wind beast? Copper fruits come in handy when it comes to evolving creatures. They are far more valuable than seeds. The wind beast was a great get, but it is a waste if you are unable to tame it. How are you going to tame it when the night spirit failed?" Chu Ming shook his head disapprovingly. Kulong Shi only listened to their conversation. She believed San Mu was someone quite special, and the things that he did shocked her a lot. Killing the coin toad and obtaining copper fruit didn't seem to be something he had happened to stumble upon through luck alone. And for that dragon blood tree to come back to life following his arrival, that would be far too much of a coincidence. She looked at San Mu with a complicated expression, but she did not say anything. They hadn't been together for long, but she did not think Han Sen was a bad person. His achievements came as quite a surprise, though. "Is there a person named Han in the Alliance? San Mu, are you really going to try to tame this wind beast?" Chu Ming looked at Han Sen, who was squatting down near the wind beast. He believed him to be a madman. "This beast hails from Thorn Forest. If I tame it, it can guide us through that knotted labyrinth and help us avoid the more dangerous hotspots," Han Sen said. Then, he activated his holy light and used it to heal the wolf. Q Langshi and Chu Ming both looked incredibly surprised, watching Han Sen heal it with a healing skill. Very few humans had this power, and women were the most likely to choose to learn that sort of hyper-geno art. Energy returned to the wind beast, and it tried to chomp Han Sen's arm. He expected this, however, and so he made sure to dodge. He fired a coin at the wolf's head in retaliation, and pinned it to the ground. The beast was ruthless, and it wasn't grateful for the healing it was receiving. It still wanted to attack Han Sen, but it was still injured, and its movements had been inhibited by the weight of the coin. The wind blades were all crushed by Han Sen. Han Sen fired a few more coins at the wolf to completely suppress it. No longer could it cast wind blades either. Alongside the continued healing, Han Sen fired more and more coins to prevent it from retaliating. In this way, Han Sen spent the next few days. The wind beast's soul had proven even harder to train than Han Sen first believed, and it failed to respond and become tame through the kindness he was showing it. If neither kindness nor cruelty quelled its hostility, Han Sen was going to run out of options. Han Sen came up with an idea of what to do. People often got close with creatures by pretending to be them. After doing so for a while, they would often end up adopting their smell. This lent them credibility with the animal, and helped the animal to acknowledge them as one of its own. With Dongshuan Aura, he simulated the wolf's energy flow so that they would be the same. Then, Han Sen inched closer to the wolf. Much to his delight, the wolf's hostility seemed to have subsided. This brought Han Sen much joy, and after realizing the success of this method, he made sure to simulate the wolf's energy flow each day. Although it was still alert to Han Sen, given what he had done to it, the wolf's concern grew less each day. A month later, the wind beast was no longer hostile. Even without the coins, he would not attack Han Sen. When Han Sen did not simulate the energy flow, the wind wolf did not attack him then either, but it only accepted Han Sen. Every time the wind beast saw Qulangshi or Chu Ming, it showed great interest in attacking them. So, Han Sen built a little house for the wind beast to live in. Han Sen continued practicing his Dongshuan Aura, taming the creature more and more each day. He hoped to one day hunt alongside it in Thorn Forest, and hoped that day would come soon. The water drops he collected were almost all used up, and it wouldn't be long before he'd used them all. He needed to find more Geno plants soon, otherwise his blood pine would stop growing. "You really tamed it. You really tamed the wind beast," Chu Ming said to Han Sen as he looked at Wind Beast. He couldn't believe it. "Yeah, how lucky am I, eh?" Han Sen was feeling pretty smug, especially since he had trumped a spirit and become the only person capable of taming such a ferocious beast. How in the sanctuaries did you do that?" Qulangji asked with much shock as she too stared at the wind beast. "I suppose it's all down to talent, really." Han Sen had no genuine excuse, but no matter what, he wasn't going to tell them about his ability to simulate energy flows. "I am bringing Little Wind to Thorn Forest with me, so I'll be gone for the next couple of days. Don't fret for my well-being." Han Sen could not wait to enter that knotted domain. Isn't it a little risky for you to go to Thorn Forest right now? Chu Ming expressed concern. It may be risky, but I have no other choice. I'm going with you, Q Langshi suddenly said. Let me scout the vicinity out first. If I can confirm it to be a safe enough area for us to venture there together, I will bring you there, Han Sen said. Then you'll be risking it all by yourself. How can we sit idly by while you risk life and limb for us? I can't let you go there alone, it wouldn't be right. Then let us all go there together, Chu Ming said, firming his jaw. No, you should stay here and take care of the garden. If we emerge from Thorn Forest without the rewards we seek, this will be our backup. Chu Ming looked as if he wanted to say something more, but she cut off whatever he was about to say. My powers are best put to use in Thorn Forest. Don't complain or try to stop me, I am going. Han Sen was curious as to what power she was referring to. He only knew Chu Ming had certain fire abilities, but Chu Langxi was still a bit of an enigma to him. Han Sen didn't believe she could help out much in their time there. He would have bid for her to remain at the house, but she was too stubborn, and he knew it would be futile to protest her accompaniment. Do you mind telling me what powers you have? They were about to venture into a realm where the possibility of death resided behind every corner. He had no choice but to ask. Scent. My power is that of scent, Q Longji said. I can mask our scent, robbing the creatures that could locate us through our scent of their abilities to find us. Furthermore, I can detect the faint traces and scents of those that have gone before us. I can read the area, Q Lengshi explained to Han Sen. Han Sen was surprised. Her abilities did not lend themselves to combat proficiency, but they would be extremely useful, all the same. They weren't in too deep yet, so there was no immediate danger. But suddenly, Little Wind stopped. It began to growl, in a signal of warning. Han Sen comforted the beast and used his Dongshuan aura to scan the vicinity. His ability had its limits, however, and so he couldn't detect whatever Little Wind was trying to draw his attention to. It wasn't too close. Kulongxi's eyes burned like molten silver, though. She looked around and said, I can detect the remnants of a scent left by a creature around 8 hours ago. There were 2 of them, as a matter of fact. Can you discern which creature came by? Han Sen asked. Unfortunately, no. I have never smelled such a scent before, so I don't know what could have left it. Han Sen knew that a dangerous creature had to be around somewhere, so he brought his companions with him to hide in the midst of a few bushes. As they did this, Kulongxi used her scent masking ability. After a short wait, the brush on the edge of a glade began to rustle. A metallic red porcupine revealed itself, and so, we have already come across our first ordinary creature. I can only wonder how many gene locks it has opened. Han Sen scanned the porcupine, and noticed its life force was almost as strong as that of Little Wind. The porcupine came out of the bushes and went towards a tree. Then, it began to burrow beneath it. It unearthed some subterranean fungi and started eating them ravenously. Han Sen was excited to see a lonely, ordinary creature. Be careful, okay? Kulongxi was nervous and cared for Han Sen's well-being. Han Sen allowed Little Wind to wait where he was and snuck behind the porcupine by himself. His basics hadn't left him yet, and so he used one of his assassination talents to approach undetected. When he was 3 meters away, the porcupine was still enjoying its meal, blissfully unaware of its nearing aggressor. When he was 2 meters away, Han Sen suddenly fired a coin onto the porcupine. The porcupine instantly became enraged. It turned around and looked at Han Sen with fiery eyes, and its spikes straightened out with a desire to kill. Like a projectile, one of his spikes was fired straight at Han Sen. Han Sen cast Dongshuan aura and evaded the spike successfully. It was going for his face. Pang. The spike drove through a tree, then bounced off of the second tree and fell down to the ground. The vegetation of the third god's sanctuary was stronger than the vegetation of the second god's sanctuary. In order to pierce through a tree, the force of the spike was horrible. The porcupine ran towards Han Sen with the speed of a sports car. If Han Sen was unfortunate enough to be caught in the roll of that porcupine's spikes, he'd be very dead. Han Sen used a formation, and with an analysis of the environment, circled the porcupine. Little Wind came charging forward, a blistering gust of wind whipping from its mouth. Its gaping maw suddenly became a cannon, one that was primed and ready to fire at the porcupine. The cannonball of wind could only be cast if the creature had successfully opened its 4th gene lock. The air cannon's ammunition was like a bomb, and hit the porcupine with tremendous force. Many of the spikes were ripped away by the wind, peeling the skin as they went. The porcupine spared no time to tend to its wounds, so it just looked at Little Wind and screamed at it. The spikes of its back suddenly burst into flames and, like bullets, rapidly fired towards the wolf. Little Wind did not move away to avoid the incoming projectiles, however. It stood its ground and howled to create a flurry of wind that blew away all the spikes. Not a single scratch was dealt to him. Han Sen fired another coin at the porcupine, and since it was distracted by Little Wind, it did not dodge. Its speed was reduced immediately, hindered by the crushing weight each coin dealt. Little Wind opened its mouth and fired his air cannon again, and after the porcupine had been slowed down by the coins that kept hitting it, it was unable to evade that either. Through the cooperative efforts of Hansen and Little Wind, the porcupine was rendered paralyzed. It could not move. Little Wind fired a few more cannonballs of wind, and for the finisher, Hansen brought down his sonic thunder punch on the porcupine's head. Ordinary creature. Flaming porcupine killed. Beast soul gained. Consume its flesh to gain 0 to 10 ordinary Geno points randomly. Flaming porcupine. Arrow beast soul. Hansen looked at its type and became extremely happy at the result. He was incredibly dexterous with a bow, so he thought it was incredibly fortunate for his first beast soul in this realm to be an arrow. Of course, Hansen still needed a bow to use it with. If he could return to the Alliance, he could have produced an alloy bow for use in the Third God Sanctuary, but alas, he could not. Qiu Lengji was a little dazed, following the spectacle of the battle she had just witnessed. An ordinary creature that had opened 3 of its gene locks had just been brutally, and quite easily, beaten. Hansen and the Windwolf made a remarkable duo. Their synergy and cooperation was tremendous, and it was difficult to believe they had only known each other for 2 months. Hansen was used to cooperating with Little Silver, and his time with the fox had made him proficient at working alongside other creatures. Furthermore, he was excellent at using Dongshuan Sutra's formations. Teaming up with the Windwolf was easy. Should we return home? Qiu Lengji asked. She thought that hunting a sole ordinary creature made for a fine day's work. How about we proceed deeper? There is no rush. Hansen didn't want to go back just yet. The flaming porcupine was too big, and he couldn't earn many ordinary Geno points since its meat would have to be shared. Little Wind, however, leapt towards the porcupine's body to eat its fill. He collected as much meat as he wanted and left most of it for the wolf. Seeing Little Wind continue to gobble up the meat that he had been given, Hansen said, "Could you mask or get rid of this blood smell? I'd hate to attract more creatures." Many creatures in the Third God Sanctuary had to eat food to survive, and all creatures had to eat to open their gene locks. "I'm way ahead of you. It has already been erased," Qiu Lengji said. Hansen nodded. Qiu Lengji's powers were extremely useful, and he had made the correct choice in allowing her to come. Far more trouble would come their way had she not accompanied Hansen. After Little Wind finished eating, they continued their trek, but after a while, the wolf stopped moving and refused to proceed. Is there danger up ahead? Hansen started walking in another direction, and Little Wind followed. Hansen brought Little Wind with him for precisely this reason, and thus far, he was satisfied with the wolf's performance. Wait, my senses are in chaos here. I can detect numerous creatures inhabiting the area ahead. Qiu Lengji stopped dead in her tracks as she stated her discovery. Can you tell what they are? Hansen said. Some scents were left behind by the forest crabs. Of those, there are a dozen distinct sets. But there are also around 20 iron bug traces, too. Qiu Lengji analyzed the area for a while longer and then said, 14 of the iron bugs are normal creatures, whereas 7 are ordinary class. The tree crabs are all ordinary. You can detect their strength, too. Hansen looked at Qiu Lengji with shock. Different tiers possess different smells, but I need comparisons with others to tell. If I had never smelled a creature before, then I couldn't tell you, Qiu Lengji explained. They slowed down their trudge through the forest, and before long they caught sight of a crab that was around the size of an average household plate. Their shells were blue, and their pincers looked frightening. The creature's pincers were currently holding a fruit, and it nibbled the fruit as it perched in a tree. The shell of a tree crab is not to be taken lightly. It is incredibly tough. The tree crab's mouth is what you should target, for that is its only weakness, Qiu Lengji said. Hansen nodded in acknowledgement. He didn't want Little Wind to go in and brutally kill it, so he decided to summon his porcupine arrow, which he would wield in his hand. Hansen would use it like a javelin. He stared at the tree crab for some time, and when the timing was right, he launched the arrow towards it with a mighty chuck. Ordinary creature tree crab killed, no beast soul gained. Consume its flesh to gain 0 to 10 ordinary Geno points randomly. Hansen picked up the crab as Qiu Lengji looked on in shock and exclaimed, "Are you sure you're a new surpasser? You are very powerful. My fitness is better than most surpassers, I'll tell you that much." Hansen, without explaining too much, called for Little Wind to rejoin him. Then he carried on walking. There were many tree crabs in the area, and after 2 miles of walking, Hansen was able to kill 8 of them. He placed them all in a sack he had brought with him. What was most strange, however, was the lack of Geno plants. They hadn't seen any in an awfully long time. Have all the wild plants been eaten by the creatures that inhabit this place? Hansen's heart sunk to the sudden realization. Well, that's not right. Qiu Lengji frowned. What's wrong? Hansen jumped, thinking Qiu Lengji had uncovered his ability to absorb plants and realized it was the reason he had actually ventured into the forest. I can smell many iron bugs in the vicinity, yet we haven't seen a single one. Something is wrong, Qiu Lengji said. When were they last here? Hansen asked. There were countless creatures as early as yesterday, Qiu Lengji said as she continued sniffing the air. Hansen and Qiu Lengji continued their journey, and after a dozen miles of walking, they hadn't managed to find a single iron bug. As Hansen was walking, he turned to see Little Wind growling in a certain direction. They approached the area the wolf was indicating, and they finally found the insects. There were many iron bugs, all gathered in one place. The iron bugs were fist-sized, and they had black shells. They skittered across the ground, all in unison, like a river of black oil. They seemed to be vacating the area. What are they doing? Hansen asked. Kulanshi said, I knew there were a lot of iron bugs, and they are supposedly social and tend to stick together, but this behavior is unheard of. I've never heard of it, at least. Well, let's take a look. Hansen was very interested in seeing what they were doing. If there was one thing he had learnt during his time in the sanctuaries, it was that if creatures were behaving strangely or abnormally, it was a sign there was treasure lying in wait. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.